Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hey, and welcome to episode 196. And quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this podcast if you've enjoyed it, or if you think it might be useful to you and you're new to it. And please leave a review if you've been liking it, if you've been finding it helpful. It's great if you can leave that review over on Apple Podcasts. That makes the most impact for me. It's wonderful to hear from you, and it helps the podcast reach more highly sensitive ears, which really helps the world be a better place and those people and their families be happier. So please go ahead and do that, and then come back here and dive into today's episode. So one of the main reasons that so many women are unhappy in their relationships is that they aren't actually stepping up and doing the work it takes to have the relationship they really want. Now, this episode might be a little bit reminiscent of last episode, and it's because I'm seeing something through my coach eyes, my relationship coach eyes, that is sort of a theme, and it is, even though my job is to help you learn tools and skills and really learn how to have a great relationship, the truth is it has to start with having motivation, with having the sense that it is possible for you to have that. Like you as a listener, as someone who wants a better relationship, the first and most fundamental thing to actually have that relationship is to believe that that relationship is possible and that you are capable of making the changes to have that relationship. And if I skipped over this, if I didn't talk about this, I fear that many people wouldn't get to have the relationship they want. They wouldn't do the work. They wouldn't feel compelled or feel any hope that they could make changes and that they could actually have that wonderful, loving, connected relationship that they really want. So I want to encourage you. Today is an episode to help you harness the power ultimately to actually start making the changes that you want so that you can feel so much better in your relationship. So last episode, I talked about one of the reasons why women sometimes don't step up and do the work that they need to really make changes that they want in their relationship. And that was last episode was that we women can easily fall into focusing on how our spouse isn't so great at relationship and how he needs to change, and how actually when we do that, that leads to resentment and feeling a sense of burden that like we're the only ones trying to make it better and that it all falls on us. And this kind of way of perceiving things and approaching our relationship or changes in our relationship, it really takes the wind out of our sails. It makes it extra hard to do what actually works to make your relationship good. So if you're feeling burdened and resentful and like you really, it should be your partner that should change, and why should you have to be the one to do any work at all, or even some of the work, and you didn't listen to last week's episode, I definitely recommend going back. That's episode 195. Highly recommend that one, and then follow it up with this one. Because today we're going to talk about another thing that stops us from doing the work that really works to make real lasting change in our marriages. And that has everything to do with hope. So hope can be an amazingly helpful thing. And it can also be amazingly unhelpful and undermining. So I think there's a lot about hope. Like hope can be taken in one way or another, and we can say it and mean one thing or a different thing. And so today we're going to talk about why it can be helpful or unhelpful, and how to kind of allow or harness hope to serve you and lead you to a marriage that you really feel good about, like lead you to being able to create and transform your marriage into the one you want it to be. So hope can go wrong in two primary ways. And the first one is we can sit back and simply hope that things will get better. Hope is very tempting in that way, right? And I see this out there in the world before people come coach with me. I see this even with listeners of this podcast, that like the hope is that by listening to this podcast, suddenly things will change in your marriage, or just sitting back and hoping that things will get better eventually. So that, of course, really does not lead to real change, because hope is not a strategy. Hope is actually empty when it's not backed up by action. And this kind of hope is what I call passive hope. And it's why people say that hope doesn't help. You've probably heard that. You've probably heard people poo-poo the word hope, the emotion hope, this concept of hope, right? Like, oh, hope does nothing, right? And I think that's true when it is passive hope. Passive hope will leave you always just hoping, always stuck in hope. Now, hope can feel kind of nice, but over time, when you see nothing changing because you're just hoping, hope will wane because no change is happening. So I think I'm a good example of this. I really fell into this in my first marriage, and I want you to hear the subtle distinction here, the nuance of this. In my first marriage, I did a lot of kind of sitting there hoping that doing what I had already been doing for years with no results would suddenly change our marriage. So it wasn't that I wasn't doing anything. I really want you to hear that. I was working on our relationship, in that I was pointing out where he was doing things I didn't like. I was telling him what I wanted him to do. I was crying and getting mad at him and hoping it would move him enough so that he would suddenly change and show up better for me. But surprise, surprise, that only did less than nothing to change things. It actually kept us locked into the same old dynamic, and actually eventually led to what we might say is the demise of my marriage, because I got so frustrated that things weren't changing that I decided to leave. So your version of passive hope may not look like doing nothing and simply hoping things will change. It may look like doing the same things over and over and over again and hoping for a different result. That, my love, does not work. It is not how a relationship change happens. Passive hope leads nowhere. All right, so the second way that hope can go wrong is by not having any. And I see this a lot too. When you feel despair, when you feel that things can't change, when you feel hopeless, you become helpless. You give up any power you have to actually change things. You give up ahead of time before even applying and learning what really works to change and transform a marriage to the best it can be. We do actually need hope, just not passive hope. What we need is active hope. I recently heard someone say hope is a verb. It is something we do. It is an action, not an emotion. And I think that helps frame what I want to say today, although I believe hope actually is both an action and a verb, and we need both parts of it. We do need to feel hope. We do need to feel the emotion of hope. But then we also need to allow that feeling of hope to fuel our action, to fuel real, productive, effective action. So let's talk more about what active hope looks like. This is the hope that I've harnessed, that I've leaned into since I left my first husband. It's the hope that motivated me to, with shaking hands and pounding heart, to walk up to that handsome man in the coffee shop that day, many years ago, and introduce myself, which would lead to my wonderful second marriage to that same handsome man. He's so glad that I did that because he didn't have the courage to do that. But my active hope, my belief and my commitment to making that belief in that dream a reality gave me the courage to walk up to this stranger that I thought looked interesting and cute and introduce myself. And it opened a doorway to the best marriage. And this active hope is the hope that I lean into to motivate me to continue every day, every week, deepening into stronger love with my husband, better communication with my husband. It is the hope that allows me to be so willing to look inward at where I'm creating obstacles and challenges to the love that I want between my husband and I. And it is the hope that motivates me to effectively and kindly and lovingly communicate with my husband, even when I feel like it would be easier to communicate in a way that is just more like instinctual and doesn't work so well. I mean, really, I could go on, but this active hope is what allows me to over and over, year by year, day by day, truly have deeper and deeper love and sweetness and joy with my husband. So I read yesterday a piece of an article by a man named Mark Elias of Democracy Docket. What he said really inspired me actually to make this podcast episode. So I'm going to borrow some of his words and share them with you right now. He wrote, "Hope is not a naive emotion. It is a sober responsibility. Hope is what we do when the odds are long and the options are limited. It is the stubborn act of trying when despair feels easier, rather than a passive optimism," which I think is passive hope, right? Hope is the commitment of those who believe they can make a difference, however small. That was just so beautiful to me. Now, he was writing this, of course, in regards to the current unraveling of our democracy. But it very much applies to relationships. Hope is not naive and sweet and passive. Not real active hope anyway. Hope is actually our serious responsibility. Our sober responsibility, as he put it. Of course not trying feels easier. Of course despair or apathy feel easier. Of course. Despair and apathy are the lazy things to do. They are the most easy things for your brain to fall into. They are the easiest paths for us humans because they take the least energy. And they will lead you directly away from the loving marriage you want and directly into more pain and division and discord and disconnection. They will lead you into marital ruin. And I speak from experience. Active hope, on the other hand, is a commitment to yourself that you will do your best to make a difference in your marriage, however small. That if at first you don't succeed, you will try and try again. That you will follow through on your commitment to your heart, to your own heart and your own self, to create the love and connection you want in your marriage. That you will follow through on your commitment to your spouse, to love and cherish in the good times and the bad times. Active hope is believing, even when it's easier not to, that you can indeed make a difference in your own marriage and experience of love. And active hope is the commitment to see that through. Active hope is also about, instead of focusing on what could go wrong, choosing to focus on what could go right. and acting as if that is inevitable, so long as you act on it, you work towards it. One thing that I see all too often out in the world, and I'm sure some of you listening are a bit stuck in this too, because I've been there, is the idea that because your spouse is not an excellently skilled partner or is not working on your relationship, that working on your relationship from your end is futile, that all is lost in your relationship if he's not also contributing, right? And I did talk about this last week some. This idea of it being futile to work on something like this is also something I'm seeing right now when it comes to fighting for our democracy and the world we want to live in, when there are so many forces working against us. Way too many people in the world right now, in the US right now, are convinced that resistance and working for democracy is futile. But this passivity, this sense of futility, is the very thing that guarantees futility, that guarantees things staying bad or getting worse. And I mean this both in the sense of our democracy and our marriages. Mark Elias says, in his beautifully eloquent way, cynicism asks nothing of us. Hope demands everything. When people choose to act rather than surrender, that is what keeps democracy alive. So I'm going to say that again, but make it about love and marriage. Cynicism asks nothing of you. Hope demands everything. When you choose to act rather than surrender, that is what keeps love alive. And that is what will grow the marriage you want. No matter where your husband's at, no matter how much your husband's trying. So all of this to say, my dear ones, refuse what Elias calls the cool cynicism of despair. Refuse the resignation, the hopelessness, the cynicism that says, I cannot make my marriage what I want. Please refuse that. Please refuse the part of your brain. Say, brain, when it tries to tell you it's futile. It's futile. I can't say that word. When it tries to tell you, I can't make my marriage what I want. Because as soon as you say, I cannot, or it's too hard, or I can't do it on my own, you've essentially doomed yourself to not be able to have the love you want in your marriage. It's a guarantee of what you don't want. It's truly a death sentence for the marriage you dream of. So just like when you say, I can't make a difference in saving our democracy, right? You're essentially giving those who want democracy to end the win. You're handing over the victory to them and surrendering, just giving up on what you want. So instead, embrace active hope. Decide to commit to your heart's longing to have the light, loving, connected, mutually supportive marriage you want, or whatever it is, like however you want to describe that, whatever that dream is, right? Commit your heart to it. Commit to doing something about it, even if you don't know the what and the how, right? Commit to doing something different than you've been doing. I want to say it like that. Right? Because you might be like, oh, well, I am doing something about it, just like I did in my first marriage. Oh, I've been doing the same thing for 5 years, for 15 years, and nothing's changed, right? If that's the case, commit to doing something different about it. Please don't keep doing the same thing. That's passive hope. Commit to believing on purpose that the marriage you want with the spouse you have is possible. And commit to learning what you need to learn, to developing the skills you need to have that are different than the ones you currently have, to have the kind of relationship you want as a modern woman. Because of course it will take learning, since almost none of us got the skills we need to have the great relationship we want as we grew up, right? Most of us did not, by osmosis, take in the skills that actually work to make the whole culture of your marriage one that's filled with love and connection and mutual supportiveness and all of that. These skills don't come by themselves. Like anything worth its salt in life, we've got to stretch and grow to get to the marriage we want. But when we bring active hope along for the ride, we will get there because we don't give up. because we keep learning and we keep adjusting and we keep growing. And we keep showing up in our relationship more and more as the person we want to be. And therefore, more and more our partner responds to us as the partner we want him to be. Active hope truly is the prime ingredient we need to have the marriage we want. It's like the base thing, the fuel, just like the big why. I talked about that last podcast episode. So again, I would invite you to go back and listen to that episode and do that work in that episode because it's very much a piece of this. But for today, I have a different assignment for you because I want to fuel that active hope. I want to build it up in you. Because remember, a big part of it is believing, like a big part of hope is believing that something you want is possible. So I want you to go look at the testimonial page of my website. And the reason I want you to do this is because I want you to see that many women have totally transformed their marriages, have even made it the best days of their marriage, better than ever, when they set their minds and hearts to it, when they stepped into active hope. Every one of these testimonials, there's over 25, and there's way more than that I could have put there. It's just a very long page right now. So every one of these women chose to commit to the dream that they had for their marriage. And they stepped into that active hope. They took on the sober responsibility of actively creating and working towards the marriage they want. And I want to say, like, it doesn't have to just be sober. Sober sounds very sad, almost in a way. But it's actually a joyful delight, like I talked about in last episode. It really can be so fulfilling and even fun. And these women, because of all of this, they got the teachings they needed to support them in creating the marriage they want. But it truly did start with active hope. Or maybe it was just hope and belief that it was possible. And then they added that extra ingredient of active hope, of working towards it on purpose. So go read that testimonial page just for that inspiration. You can find it over at my website under the About tab. It's kind of hidden weirdly, but you click on the About tab and the drop down will come down and you'll see testimonials there. Or you can just go to the direct link, which is hspmarriagecoaching.com/testimonials. And I will as well drop that direct link into the show notes so you can go find it there as well. So go read those testimonials and see that there truly is hope and more than hope. There is more than possibility that you can do this too, that yours can be one of those stories as well. There is probability, likelihood, and there is concrete proof that you can also make your marriage better than it has ever been. Now, I want to be super clear. I am not sending you to this page to convince you to work with me. I honestly just want you to start believing that you too can change your marriage into the loving team feel one that you really want. And I want to invite you to stop focusing on what could go wrong and start focusing on what could go right. But of course, if you want the fastest, most direct way to get to that marriage, if you want a proven path with deeply loving guidance, I do invite you to come coach with me in my private one-to-one program. It is the difference between throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something will stick and following a proven path to get the lasting love you want with your spouse. So the way that I kind of start the process of coaching with me and work to find out if it is really a good fit for you is I have you first fill out the Great Mutual Fit form. It should take 5 to 10 minutes. And on that form, you can indicate whether you'd like to have a chat with me or if you have other questions that would help you feel like it's, to know that it's the right thing for you. And of course, once I receive that form, I'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours and we'll go from there. If you want to have a chat, that's great. If you don't feel like you have any questions or you need to connect with me before we start coaching, that's also great too. Unless, of course, I have questions for you. and we'll go from there together. And before you know it, you're going to be seeing and feeling really great changes happening, because even just the act of signing up for this coaching, I've witnessed over and over, and I think it's almost magic, right? But it's not really. It's this act of hope. It's this commitment to the change you want. It's the taking action piece. But what happens is people feel shifts in their marriage even before the first session. And certainly within the first couple weeks, things start to feel better that fast. So if you want to learn more about coaching with me, you can go to the direct link in the show notes, or you can go over to hspmarriagecoaching.com and click the Work Privately with Me tab. But even if you are not yet ready to actually coach with me, please do go check out those testimonials for inspiration and this sense that there really is hope, and there is really probability and, in fact, inevitability that working in the right ways on your marriage, on yourself in your marriage, will create the marriage you want, will move you closer and closer into that yummy marriage that you've always wanted with your spouse. And with that, be oh so well.